Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is. Well, welcome back. It's Friday. You guys ever had one of these? One shot energy chews? They did not pay me to say this, although they should. These things are ridiculous. You could have you could wake up early like I did this morning, have a bunch of stuff to get done, and take one of those, and you are ready to go. And not only that, but I feel like I'm just much clearer as a result of it. Okay, so let's just break into it today, Friday. We have a full. It's gonna be a lot to talk about. First of all, Dan Bongino is the gift that keeps on giving. Tim Pool was sucking his butthole out over the weekend or over the week, and look, I like Dan Bongino. I do. I like Dan Bongino. I like old Dan Bongino. I like the Dan Bongino who actually talked about having FU money. The one that talked about being incorruptible. I don't believe that that's the case today. And I believe that's why he's leaving. And I believe that he tried to do the best he could to turn the ship at the FBI. But much like when Elon Musk went to Washington and tried to doge the government, I think the same thing happened to Dan Bongino. I think Dan Bongino walked in and said, listen, I want to change the FBI. I'm going to stand right here with Kash Patel. And he couldn't get it done. And the reason why he can't get it done, and it's not a lack of wanting to get it done, but the reason why he can't get it done is because there's no appetite, because no one wants to give up the grift or the benefits that they receive. And there are a lot of tentacles into the FBI. There's a lot of tentacles from the CIA into the FBI. There's a lot of tentacles in the bureaucracy and the FBI. The DOJ, I don't even know what to say about that. It's a machine that just does not function. It doesn't function in large part because, again, people don't want to give up their cheese. And no bigger example of this would be what happened with the Brown University shooting. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about Dan Bongino. We're gonna talk about Tim Pool. I mean, that's a gift that keeps on giving. But he's a super podcaster, so you gotta love Tim Pool. But I don't. I'm learning a lot more, and you know how your senses get dulled? You dull your senses when you step out because everyone else is having a good time, and now when you look out and you see everything that's going on, you can see the reality. It's as if the emperor has no clothes. There's a bunch of naked people running around. You can see the little peepees on the people that are walking around acting like they're tough. You can see the guy. It's almost as if you could see behind the scenes of what a person's thinking when they're smiling and nodding, and behind all of that facade is just a wrecked life, a full amount of misery. I kind of see that stuff. And especially in the influencer world, everyone's trying to find a way to make money, and how do you get advertisers? And I've just gotten to that place now where I don't know. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where I just realized that everything's fake and gay, and that social media is not what it's cracked up to be, because it's all fake and gay. It's all fake. It's fake as hell. You got a bunch of people running around taking selfies of themselves and making it look like they're, on cloud nine, when in reality they're living in their parents' basement. It's a relatively large phenomenon. Or you have the people that, walk in front of a jet and tell you that they're successful, and you find out that they're driving a Yugo convertible with 3 wheels and a kickstand. It's just not real. It's absolutely not real. So we're going to dive into Tim Pool and the Kash Bongino Brown, and then we're going to go through the Brown University shooting update. Now, I have a guest today, and I think he'll be on in a few minutes. His name is Richard Ryan, and he is. Let me just go back in time. He co-founded Black Rifle Coffee, and he was the key marketer and content strategist for Black Rifle Coffee for a long time. And he's known for his YouTube channels. He's founded companies like Blackbeard Development Group, which is blockchain for creators. And he's really done a lot of great things. He's generated billions of views, up to 20 billion, which is a lot, right? And millions of followers across platforms. He's just a great guy, but he's pioneering software development today. We got to talk before he came on. Typically, I don't. But I did say before he came on that I was joking around about the fact that that we could have a conversation about DEI and Black Rifle Coffee, and Tommy goes, "We can't talk about that stuff," and I'm like, "All right, we're not going to talk about that stuff. Let's talk about the fun stuff." And I was joking around and say the Black Rifle went woke, and I believe they have gone woke, mostly because, you know, Evan Hafer is just Evan Hafer. And I'm not hating on anyone, right? I'm not even hating on Tim Pool or Dan Bongino. I just want to be realistic. I want to be realistic about what's real and what's not real. And anyway, so our guest today is going to be a pretty awesome guy. Today is my wife's birthday, so I'll just say happy birthday to my wife, Erica. And she is just turned 35 again. And after nearly 24 years together, she's still a rock solid hot woman. So happy birthday. Okay. So let's walk through it. Let's start with number one, Tim Pool and Bongino. Cut one.
Dan Bongino. I'm a huge fan. I have been a huge fan for a while. You are a gentleman and a scholar and a legend, and I know you tried your best, and I know you're doing the right thing, and I believe in you. It is crazy to me that people think this guy didn't do everything he could do. You know, because the question is, who else? And I believe in Kash as well. People have been ragging on him about the jet and all that stuff, and I'm like, I'm not playing this game, okay? I know Kash Patel. Nobody's got the God hand. Nobody's going to go in and just turn a page on these corrupt institutions overnight. But the idea that these men are not trying to do the best they can is laughably absurd. All you got to do is listen to Kash Patel talk about what James Comey did, and you can hear it in his voice, his passion for weeding out the corruption. Does it mean you can get through? No, but we start somewhere.
Okay, we didn't start anywhere. And yes, you can walk in and you can wave your hand and actually solve the corruption issues you have with the FBI. It's called firing. You can do it. You can look at previous reports and assignments that they had and their behavior on those assignments. And you can use other people that are in the Bureau that have been whistleblowers, and you could have brought the suspendables back faster. You could not have given people raises and giving them promotions when you knew what they were involved with. You promoted, Kash Patel promoted people that actively were inside of J6, that incited riots in J6 at the Capitol, and he promoted them. I often wonder what did Tim do? What did Tim Pool do before he decided to become a podcaster? How does he know how the FBI, how does he know how any organization works? Give me an organization that he ran. Give me something that he built other than a podcast. Which, by the way, you start out buying bots and you buy traffic and you do these things and you buy a channel and then hopefully it takes off and then you have a bunch of other people tell everyone that you're cool And then if they tell you you're cool, then people go to you because somebody told you you're cool. So they built this guy. They built this guy. They built Tim Pool. They built most of them. I mean, there are some that are genuinely amazing people because they did amazing work. Lara Logan's. She did amazing work. Kyle Seraphin, like him, hate him, I don't care. He's a great guy. He's a good friend. I love the guy. He built it on his own. Everything he has on his own. And by the way, people would reach out to him and they'd pat him on the head and be like, "Oh, good. Oh, we love you." And he's like, "What do you have for me? Why are you reaching out to me?" And he would turn someone that's a fan into someone that won't listen to him because they hurt his feelings, pretty much in a 15-second period of time. But most of these guys are made. Most of them are made. Most of them are manufactured. So Tim Pool's going to tell you can't walk into an institution and just turn it around overnight. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Matter of fact, you could snap your finger, get rid of a bunch of people, tell them what the ethos is, and if they don't play ball, you hire slowly, you fire fast. Oh, but you're not allowed to do that. Challenge it. Don't promote people that are shit people. Well, you wouldn't have anybody left. Well, you're not really doing anything anyway. You know, the problem that I have with Kardashian Patel is that he lacks a fundamental thing. It's fundamental to what you do if you run the FBI. And it's fundamental to every business, by the way. Every business you're going to run, you have to have an ethos that is surrounded by this one thing, loyalty. He has shown no loyalty to the American people. None. And I will parrot what Kyle Seraphin said. He will not finish out his tenure. He won't, because he has no substance. And Dan Bongino did not leave because Dan Bongino did not think he could change the ethos of the FBI. Dan Bongino left because they wouldn't let him change the ethos of the FBI. And he saw the writing on the wall that this is just kabuki theater. And he had seen organizations that were run well, and he'd seen organizations that had degraded to a point where you can't really do anything with it. So he left those organizations. He had talked about some of the problems they had in the Secret Service. He ran for office. He did not get elected when he ran for office. But it's still there. Like, you can still tell that when he walked into the organization, he had an idea of what that organization would look like. Tell me what Tim Pool did. I'll wait here. And it screamed of an infomercial. And let's just look at the Brown University shooting. By the way, had it not been for a homeless guy, they never in a million years would have gotten to the point where they caught the Brown University shooter. Oh, okay. Here you go. I just got told what Tim Cass did. Prior to 19, Tim Pool built his career primarily as a citizen journalist and professional reporter. He first gained widespread recognition in 2011 for live streaming the Occupy Wall Street protest. So hasn't done jack shit. He stands on a corner, looks and sees what he sees, and then goes out and reports on it. And you know what? I don't care if Tim Pool likes me or hates me. You don't sit here and tell me that and suck the asshole out of someone like Dan Bongino and tell me, oh, I know Kash Patel. You don't know Kash Patel. You don't. Because the Kash Patel that started out saying that, hey, I was going to dismantle the FBI became the entrenchment of the FBI, all while parading around a 26-year-old, calling her a sensational country singer. She's not that either. And if it doesn't take a rocket scientist to scratch below the surface of Alexis Wilkins or whatever and find out that there's not a lot of substance there either. So it's like we're dealing with a bunch of sock puppets that are just lined up in front of us, and we're just supposed to believe that they're the good guys and here to take care of us while the American people suffer. And by the way, I'm not the one suffering. I want to be really clear. While I sit here and have a conversation with you about this, it's not like it's the haves and the have-nots and that I don't know where my next meal comes from, because I do. And I've had an immense amount of success, and I've had my share of failures. But what I learned to do is to be loyal to the people around me, loyal to good people and not so loyal to bad people, and getting rid of bad people as quickly as you possibly can with the words, "You're fired." President Trump knows those words very well. I feel like he's stuck between a rock and a hard spot. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not. But I feel like he is. Journalists do not have, in my opinion, credibility to tell me what an organization can and cannot do. You don't. You have no experience. None. You run your own, you run your own organization. Here's what I'll tell you. When you run your own organization, because now you have Tim Pool running around, and look, I'm not anti-Tim Pool. I just want to be really clear. This is me criticizing Tim Pool. Tim Pool can tell me to F off. I don't care. You know what? People have been saying bad shit about me for the last 5 years. I could care less what Tim Pool says. And you know what? This is not me fanboying on him because, he has more people to follow him. Good for you. That's your entire life, your entire existence. It's not mine. Mine is get rid of machines, mail-in ballots, and get to a place where we have a sensible government that actually takes care of the 40% that's rotted out to the core. Not talking about it, but being about it. That's my whole goal. And if I never did a podcast another day for the rest of my life, I'd be a pretty happy guy still. But the reality of it is you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And our government is in a really bad place right now, in large part because everyone's an expert and nobody wants to make the hard decisions to get rid of the institutional rot that we have. President Trump walks in, Elon Musk walks in, says, I'm going to take care of it, starts cutting things, cuts USAID, cuts. All of a sudden, you got Soros over here with a bunch of Antifa bandits, and they start lighting Tesla dealerships on fire and doing everything they can to disrupt Tesla over here while he's trying to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse that happens in the government. And he can't get anywhere without people on his board giving him hell, people that are friends with him say, hey, just step out of this. And he finally saw, I think that Elon finally saw it for what it was. And he's like, this is a circus. You can't run a country like this. You certainly can't run a successful country like this. I'm out. I think he hit the little button that said, I'm out. And do I think that there was a little bit of a rub between President Trump and Elon Musk? Probably the frustration that, hey, listen, I came in here to do a job and I couldn't get it done. And a certain part of it was ego. I mean, Elon Musk is a successful guy. He walks in and he cut 70% of Twitter when he bought it, and it still runs. You want to know why? Because it was all bullshit, built on a bunch of just fluff. And Twitter had never made money ever. So, I mean, you have an organization that didn't make money, that had a market cap of $45 billion, that the reason why it was successful is that it had information on, 90% of the U.S. population. Elon came in and bought that, put his money where his mouth was, and said, I'm going to open up free speech. And do I agree with everything that X stands for? Absolutely not. I don't, because I think some of it's just bullshit. I get suppressed just like other people get suppressed, but you just deal with it. You learn to just deal with it. I'm going to just deal with it. I deal with it on Rumble. I deal with it on all these different platforms, right? Because I'm not their chosen guy. I'm not their Timcast. Now, with that said, Tim said something very clear. He said, you cannot turn an organization. Nobody has God's hand. God literally, the idea that it would take God to change an organization when you're at the tip of the spear is probably the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. And there's only a few things he could have done that would have been different, but he would have had to have somebody else backing him, which would have been the suspendables, and he chose not to do that. So the reason why we have an inept FBI, where even something like the Brown University shooting has to be solved by a homeless guy, is because the FBI still has a bunch of DEI hires, still has a bunch of retards, still has a bunch of inept leadership, still has a bunch of the institutional rot that has rotted out most of the other parts of the government. And are there good pieces of the FBI? Yes. Yeah, there are. You know what? I think the FBI is in that, have you ever seen the what's that movie called? Lion King? You know, when they get taken over and it just turns into this dark place. Well, I mean, our country is in that dark place. Mufasa's killed. He's run over by the herd. His brother takes over, tries to destroy it. Simba comes up, grows up into a great leader and takes it back over. So I think President Trump is Simba, right? I think that to a large degree, we're in that place where it's been a very dark time. And a lot of things have been rotted out. President Trump's trying to fix it. But frankly, nobody is coming kicking and screaming because they want to sit in an office to do absolutely nothing. And one of the things that I can tell you that is a direct correlation to this is 2020 rotted out businesses. It rotted out the business culture. It rotted out people's ability to work. I mean, we see it every day. I am in the throes of getting rid of the last pieces of a company that I was gone for 3.5 years. I wasn't there. And I walked back in and I get told by a consultant, this is an actual consultant on the outside, said, take it easy or you'll lose everyone. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I'll just be nice to them for a little bit, kind of walk through the process. So then I was nice until I wasn't. And I had to deal with the people going on different places and doing negative reviews, and I didn't care. And then I had a couple that I sued because I had to basically lay the law down and say, listen, you either do your job or get out. So I fired 34 people in, I don't know, must have been 3 weeks. And I fired the consultant. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done playing this little coddling game. And what happened over the next 6 months is that the organization had a dip and it suffered for a minute. And then I came in and I gave the organization my vision. And I was like, I want to get back to pre-2020. I want to get back to 2019. I want to run and gun and do everything that we can to help our clients grow and to be successful. And our job is to adopt the ethos that if they don't eat, we don't eat. That was what we said. We always said, if they don't eat, we don't eat. So if our clients don't eat, we don't eat. In other words, you're going to stay up all night and you're going to starve to death until you take care of the customer the way they want to be taken care of. Well, that's not an ethos that this new population can deal with. And if you look at the government and something like the FBI, they don't want to work hard. Actually, some of them do. And they do a majority of the work. But then there's those people that just want to do harm to other people and want to use it as a beating stick. And that's in essence what it's become. All right, let's talk about this homeless guy. The Brown University shooting suspect was found solely due to homelessness. And I'm sorry that I squirreled there for a minute, but I think it's important that we, that we not lie to ourselves anymore. We're not lie to ourselves. When someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, okay, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. But people adopt it. They go, oh yeah, you can't change an organization quickly. Yes, you can. You can, because I did. It took me 3 months. 3 months, and revenue went up by 300, 400%. And people would call me and naysay it. Anyway, you can do it. It's an easy thing to do. You're just not very popular for a little bit until you are, until people get the vision of excellence. And that's a vision. Like a vision of excellence means you have to lead people in a place where they want to follow you while it's tough, while you're building out and restoring process. And that's just not something Kash Patel has the capability of doing because he's not a good leader. So the Brown University shooting suspect was found solely due to a homeless man who confronted and followed Claudio Neves Valente before the attack, posted an anonymous tip identifying his rental car, and ultimately led police to the suspect in Salem, New Hampshire. And if you put the post up real quick, just so we can, so people can see it. I'm being dead serious. The police need to look into a gray Nissan with Florida plates, possibly a rental. That was the car he was driving. It was parked in front of a little shack behind the Rhode Island Historical Society on the Cook Street side. I know because I used his key fob. He used his key fob to open the door, approaching it, and something prompted him to back away. When he backed away, he relocked the car. I found that odd, so when he circled the block, I approached the car, and that was when I saw the Florida plates. He was parked in the section between the gate of the RIHS and the corner of Cook and George Street. Now, I'm going to give you more information as I start to get it, but this wasn't just a homeless guy. I just want you to know it was not just a homeless guy. But let's go ahead and play this video. This is a homeless man, a video talking about that homeless man. Let's play it.
Opened by a homeless man who goes by John. Now, investigators say that he's a former Brown University student who grew suspicious of the gunman when he locked eyes with him in the bathroom just 2 hours before the shooting inside the Barris and Holly building. The gunman, his name is Claudio Neves Valente. Now, John, pictured here, is the man police were looking to speak to because of how close he got to that gunman. John said he followed Neves Valente Valente out of the building before the shooting and played a game of cat and mouse in the neighborhood. Surveillance video shows Neves Valente running away from John. At one point, he stood just feet away from the gunman and questioned why he was circling the block. The gunman repeatedly responded, quote, "Why are you harassing me?" When police released images of the suspect after the shooting, John wrote an anonymous Reddit post describing seeing the gunman unlock a parked gray Nissan sedan with Florida plates he thought could be a rental. 3 days after the shooting, John anonymously called the police tip line and flagged his own Reddit post. On Wednesday, John walked up to police, revealed that he was the man police were looking for, that he was close to the gunman, and that the Reddit post came from him. Police used license plate readers to track the gray Nissan to an Alamo car rental center in Boston. They pulled surveillance images showing Neves Valente, and they traced him to a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire, where he was found dead last night. Now, Neves Valente was spotted in the Brown University building on November 28th. That's 2 weeks before the shooting. Last night, I asked investigators how it could be that a homeless man and not police noticed a suspicious person in that time.
Well, the Providence Police is obviously not going to patrol Barris and Holly. That's a question, frankly, for Brown and their police department.
Why would a civilian observe that to be suspicious? It's a great point. And I like the fact that you're mentioning that and bringing that up. That's what we should all be doing, right? And it's just personality. Some people are more interested in finding out what others are doing. In this particular case, this person decided that he wanted to, and I'm glad he did.
A source tells Fox that John is a homeless man who actually lives in the basement of the Barris and Holly building. And while that brings up a whole slew of security questions, the reality is he's being treated as a hero.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. I'm not going to unpack it all. I'm going to tell you this, and this should concern you. One, the Providence, Rhode Island police chief, I was told is not even a citizen. Now, that's not even the biggest problem. Here legally, but not a citizen. And there's more and more of these, by the way. There's more and more people that are being brought into these super blue environments, and they're becoming police officers. So you have people that are not even Americans that are basically telling you what to do. And this problem is not going to go away. They're continuing to do it even under President Trump. Here is the police spokesperson for Providence Police Department. This is crazy. This is Lyle Culpepper. Wow. Here, just play it.
We're asking the public to please stop referring to him as the brown shooter, as this has an inherently Islamophobic connotation.
No, it's actually it's because of the university. It's not because of the
Brown, because of Brown University, not because of the color of skin. Right. We are also asking the public to please stop posting photos of Mufasa Carmax. We would, for the sake of diversity, really like to pin this on a different ethnicity, because it is unfair to keep blaming Islam for every violent act they commit. Let's do better.
Okay, I'm just kidding. It kind of poking a little bit of fun at the what the police chief was saying earlier about it, but yeah, let's put this up there. In response to that, President Trump and Kristi Noem have ordered the suspension of America's diversity visa program, which is the reason why this guy was allowed to actually come into the country. So he has ordered the suspension of America's diversity visa program, which allowed Brown University's shooting suspect Claudio Neves Valente into our country. This was a lottery program, and it let multiple terrorists into America, including the NYC ISIS truck ramming terrorists. Our entire immigration system to be scrapped and rebuilt at this point. So you could say that about pretty much the entire government, and you would not be wrong. And one of the conversations that I had with Richard Ryan, who is now here to talk to us about algorithmic warfare, is just that. We were talking about the fact that both sides are guilty of this propaganda. Both sides are guilty of creating an environment which basically pins us against each other. And yeah, so with that said, I'm not going to waste a whole lot more time. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's good to have you, brother. It's good to talk to you beforehand as well.
Yeah, yeah. When you talk about algorithmic warfare, it's like, oh man, where do we even start?
I love algorithms because it's a thing that helps you create an environment where you can find characteristics about individuals that allow you to find other people that match that characteristic, right? So there's some really great things that you can learn in the marketing world, or even in, well, pretty much any world.
For sure. Let's unpack that. You say, let's just get the boogeyman out there and define it. An algorithm is just distilled down machine learning that's optimizing for a desired outcome. The problem is, I think a lot of buzzwords that people say just interchangeably, casually, and stuff like AI is another buzzword right now. Without really understanding what it means, it's kind of hard to understand the problem that is what it's contributing to. So algorithms, again, it's machine learning that's optimizing for a desired outcome. And for social media, it's watch time on platform, watch time on video, whatever the content is. But there's a number of ways in which that could kind of lead down a path where it might be of interest of a State Department or whatever. And so just so people know, it's not some arbitrary thing that somebody injects into a system. It's just, and it may not even be that there's a C-suite level individual or an engineer that has nefarious intentions. It could just be, at the end of the day, some of these things are just boiling down to misaligned incentives. They want your attention, and the best way to get your attention is to keep you in an angry fight or flight state, to keep you watching videos to be served more ads. But there's a number of ways to approach that, and happy to jump in that with you.
Yeah. So I mean, this is where I start to look at. You said AI. Again, it's a overused word. It really is just machine learning, and that machine learning and AI are two totally different things. And when you start to talk about neural nets and CPUs, GPUs, and NPUs, there's a lot of things that go into actually having a real AI system. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have the capability of getting there, but most of the things we're using now are just LLMs, right? Large language models.
Yeah. Yeah, and even then, and trying to distill things down to their most basic components and what that threat vector might be. When I talk about AI, most of the time, because you have diffusion models, you have language models, you have various different models that might be using something like the transformer or something like that. Just say, hey, all these technical jargon, just forget about it. Take some of the core value propositions like indexing, parsing, and querying. So indexing is just categorizing. It's the yellow pages of information, whatever that is, right? So a lot of these models have trained on the open internet. So it could be the yellow pages of everything that you've said on Twitter or YouTube and Reddit and all these other different things. And then it indexes it and categorizes it in a way that can be parsed, easily accessible. So what did you say on that day? You could query that. And, in the past, whenever one person, an engineer, somebody within a company, I'm not trying to give people ways, just put some threat vectors on your I guess your situational awareness here is Amazon's a great one because a lot of people use Amazon. So having someone's address and where they're shipping things, that's a major vulnerability. And being able to go through and look at those things, I think that a lot of people, when they hear these boogeyman terms like AI, you just got to think about the very basic principles and what those value propositions are, and then you really can start figuring out ways to kind of mitigate whatever those threats are. Because I think a lot of people get so inundated with these insurmountable challenges around technology, and it almost feels like you just throw your hands up and say, all right, well, the tech overlords are going to take over here. I have no ability to offset any of the damage that's being done or anything like that. What's the point? And I'm not a defeatist. I'm an optimist. I feel like the nature of humanity is to strive in the face of adversity. That everyone loves a good underdog story. And right now we have the deck stacked against us. So to break down these challenges as fundamentally as possible, understanding the situation, again, where the incentives may be misaligned, and how do we come up with constructive I don't know, solutions to the challenges that we face. Because again, I think a lot of people are just, they're jaded, they're burned out, they're just negative, and it's in part the byproduct of the situation that we've been in for 20 years of machine learning for again, optimizing time on platform through just keeping people angry. That you can see that in the polarization and or the bifurcation and politics and everything too. Hey, I think you and I were chatting earlier. It was like, I think so many people are broken in their logic and their thought process around different things. And the great example I like to give is student loan debt. And so many people make it's us versus them. And one side wants to give and forgive all of the debt that those people may have taken on. The other side, it's like, absolutely not. I didn't get that for free. I'm not paying for yours. It's like, whoa, take a step back. You guys realize that the people who are benefiting from you arguing are the ones that are intentionally keeping you from the solution that would make not everyone happy, but it would resolve it, and we could move on. And it's not about forgiving student loan debt. It's not about somebody getting something and you having to pay for it. Like, the real conversation we should be having is like, who's benefiting from this? Oh, it's the institutions. Like, they're the ones getting all this money that can't be forgiven. These people can't go bankrupt. They're saddled with debt that can be transferred to their dependents if they die. It's absolutely absurd. And if we were to say, hey, you know what? Let's get some people in office that say, no more. Like, if you have student loan debt, it's going to suck, but you can go bankrupt. And the people who are going to have to eat that are going to be the institutions who are making insane amounts of money, have massive endowments, and then from there, they're going to have to look at every single degree that they underwrite in the future and say, is this a valuable degree going into the marketplace? Are they going to have a viable path to generating some type of income to pay it back? Or are we just going to say, hey, sorry, your liberal arts degree ain't going to cut it in the marketplace. We're not going to underwrite it. Sorry. If you want to go to college, you're going to have to go to something that has something in the marketplace that it deems valuable to pay it back. And I feel like there's a lot of different political conversations right now where so many people are caught up on the nuance between us versus them, that they're not thinking about the actual solution and how do we hold these people accountable in these processes that we're electing. And that's the real frustration, because I feel like if you want to get really fired up, I feel like we've seen the transfer of wealth in so many different ways over the last 5 years, let alone 10, 15 years. And I think that we are getting to a point in society where a lot of people are just so frustrated with politics, and you can see this with Charlie Kirk and all these other different things that are happening in society where violence is like. I had so many conversations with people on both sides of the political spectrum. The day that happened, they were like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Because I generally don't rush to social media to post my thoughts or anything. I'll have conversations with people in person. But and it was really interesting seeing the tone between both sides, feeling like we were on a very shaky path where violence in society, the whole fabric of our infrastructure and different things were at play here that didn't seem like they were years ago. And I think that the reason for that is because there's zero accountability in politics. Zero. It's like everyone keeps voting for change and whatever that is, and they keep getting the same uniparty like funding of this and that.
It's funny you talk about that, because we've had this conversation over and over and over again. Laura Logan just put up something that says, nobody is above the law. And then she said, except for all these people. And she lists out 200 people and says, I can go on forever, but why would I? Right? When you talk about politicians and what they speak on versus what they accomplish, they don't accomplish anything. They use superfluous things like, I want to cut taxes, right? Well, yeah, I can, if you're not a politician, you get down to it and you say, no, I'm going to cut out all property tax because frankly, it makes you a slave and you don't own your property. You rent it from the government. So I'll be very specific about certain things, but our politicians don't do that. They use these other terms, which I find for me, they are they're insulting, right? And that is, I do these things for the American people. Man, you haven't done a damn thing for the American people your entire life, right? It's self-serving. So there is no selfless sacrifice. And we find ourselves in the same kind of washing machine over and over and over again, have now for what, 70, 80 years.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this a lot. In my book, I quote Munger in the first chapter of my book is, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And I think that, outside of the attention economy and social media, the incentive misalignment around things, specifically like politics, is something I've thought about a lot. And I wish I had an answer. I'll throw some stuff out there, get your kind of thoughts around it and everything. I've talked with a few people, and they say that it's going to be hard if we were to try it, but I think it only takes one or two people. So again, if you deconstruct the problem, accountability is the one thing that we need from the people that are elected in office, because what's happening is they only need that short bit of runway to get people to vote for them, and then they can do everything that they want against their constituents, as long as that lobbying money or super PAC money or whatever keeps flowing in the background. They just have to say whatever they need to do to get elected, and then after the fact, doesn't matter. So how do you introduce accountability short of a revolution? I think that one of my favorite other favorite quotes is, you play the rule book, not the game. And I think one of the benefits of the American society is, some people might argue it's a negative, but we're very litigious in so many different ways. So how do you leverage that against politicians? Where are some specific areas, either in the House and the Senate, let's forget local politics for the time being, where there are people that could be primaried, where we could establish a super PAC that says, hey, look, this is going to be apolitical. This is going to be Democrat and Republican candidates that we're going to back. But here's the core values, right? We're not going to vote to increase the national debt. You'll never do that. You'll never, I don't know, maybe you'll vote for a national or a constitutional amendment to privacy, since we don't have one. I mean, the Fourth Amendment is very limited in that, and you could argue a lot of the things happening right now should be escalated up to some type of decision on the Supreme Court. But right now, we don't have a constitutional right to privacy outside of the Fourth Amendment and what that entails. Anyways, I digress. Let's pick 4 or 5 things that we think are just dire right now. And I think that the national debt is definitely one of them, because mark my words, bailouts are coming. There are so many zombie companies out there. There are so many companies valued where their PE ratio is just unrealistic. And when the cracks start happening in the economy, what will happen is something like 2008, where we'll identify sectors that are too big to fail. And those companies that should go under and allow the free market to step in and create a more efficient organization or entity that will take its place and be better and innovate, the taxpayers will pay to keep that zombie afloat. And then the money printer will go burr, and then the average American working class, lower class individual will take it on the chin for it. And so there's these core criteria, we'll say, are red lines in the sand. You will not cross them. And how do you hold them accountable in it? I think that if we had enough of the American people come together and say, hey, look, I'm going to donate to this because I'm tired of it. I'm not donating for a party line. I'm voting for my ideals as an American for this. And then anybody who wants to take that super PAC money, what they have to do is, like any of those government positions, you're going to have to disclose all your assets. Right. So, what companies you own, what interest in, what your net worth is, and all this other stuff. And then you're going to put all your assets into a blind trust. And the governing documents of that trust will stipulate that if you break any of that, we'll call it 5 criteria, the executors of that trust can take and liquidate those assets and do whatever with them, reimburse the super PAC for it, distribute it among the constituents. Now, most people will hear that and they'll go, yeah, you'll never get anybody to sign up for that. All it's going to take is 1 or 2 people to get primaried. And then every single voter in the US will go, oh, well, they're not asking for ideological things like something that I'm passionate about would be firearms, right? It's like they're not asking to make all guns, legal and no background checks or anything like that's a conversation between a lot of ideologues or whatever. They're just saying you're not going to spend any more money or you're going to balance the budget or whatever. And so every other voter will go to their representatives and be like, why won't you take their money? They're not asking for you to vote against your party on anything other than the things that people care about, right?
Yeah. So let's. I would love for that to be a real thing. Here's my problem: getting people primaried. The machine it's a really deep machine. It's not just. There are billionaires that get together every year and decide what campaigns they're going to actually fund. Right. And if you keep
this
someone
is where,
away from the red button,
yeah, but that's where it takes all the American people to really start thinking about what they care about. And again, people will look at my different belief systems and everything and try to pin me on left or right. And I'm like, I'm an individual rights absolutist. I would say I'm a libertarian short of anarchy in so many different ways. I think the individual rights is where I always err on the side of if there's a debate in front of me. But I think that they might pick and choose a few elections, but if everyone really started focusing on this as hey, look, I'm tired of voting for change and not getting it, those billionaires couldn't keep up with it. They might be able to create propaganda campaigns around a few of the elections, a few of the candidates, but not all of them. And I think we are primed in society in so many different ways for people. They won't vote for a third party, but they would probably vote for a candidate that's willing to put everything on the line to primary somebody, I think.
Well, let's talk about that because I have 8 days left before I decide whether or not I'm going to jump into the governor's race in Colorado specifically.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason I'm doing it is you have Victor Marx, which, here's a guy that, is a great showman, talks about God, which, I'm a big proponent, a man of faith. So that works for me. But I can't marry up the substance of what he says he is with what he talks to people about and what he does. So I can't marry those. And then you have Scott Bottoms on the other side, who's a pastor. So we have some pretty strong guys that are in the race already. And so why would I jump in on it? Well, I'll tell you, I would jump in on it because one, nobody's talking about the poor people. I say this a lot over the last couple of days. If you have a tree and 40% of your tree roots are rotted out and the other 60% is good, do you just keep watering the 60% and hope that the 40 makes it out, or do you do something to cut out the disease on those roots? Right? You service the 40%, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what we do. We allow that 40% to grow into the other 60% because we just sustain it. We sustain the problem rather than, we throw NGOs at it or dollars at it or SNAP benefits or, all these different things at the poorest among us. We never want to resolve the problem. We never want to work the problem. And so I look at much of society on the political side as I think people getting involved. I said, look, I can just go talk to the Republicans and the Democrats because before 2020, nobody called me anything. They never called me anything. They never called me conservative or right wing. That never even came up. Right? That wasn't even a part of the conversation. Neither was he, him, they, whatever you want to call it either. So I mean, in truth, 2020 was the year that we found out everyone is non-binary. But what you're saying is that the people could come together. Now, here's the two things in the middle that will actually stop that from happening: media and the propaganda from both sides, because they don't want anybody to solve the problem. Both sides. Maybe I'll ask you this: do you think both sides are equally the problem?
That's tough because I'm ignorant. To be brutally honest, I don't like. I could speculate, but I have no real understanding as to the incentives behind each of the parties and the money inflows and outflows. I'm too ignorant to that. I mean, you can speculate the the amount of money that's poured in and the money going out in the various industrial complexes. Yeah, I mean, it seems equal, but that's my ignorant assumption, right? It just seems like there's you pay to play, and you get favor in the event that something comes up, be it a contract for for your business to benefit, or in the event something happens in the economy and you get bailed out or whatever. You get subsidies for people to keep their jobs in your district, whatever. It's such a big bureaucratic beast at this point. I'm just speculating, so I feel like I'm too stupid to have an educated opinion on that.
Well, I mean, look, the reality of it is, in order to solve the problem, you have to have some understanding of what the problem is and what the symptoms are. And even if we're able to find someone that can actually run and unify people based on the universal idea, you still have to get through machines and mail-in ballots. And our election systems are, okay, at best, even if you do not agree, you and I didn't talk about this, but even if we didn't agree, and you said the machines are fine, they're not transparent. There's no transparency to them. So
what aspect? When you mean the machines? Yeah.
They're coded to basically every election in the entire country is fraudulent. Every single one of them. And and this is predicting what happened in the 2020 output for the Senate runoff race in Georgia, or we can talk about the elections that have had anomalies up and down the ticket, from county commissioners all the way up to the presidential election, from not just 2020, but you can go all the way back to 2008, when Obama was elected the first time. So we have a system that basically has no checks and balances. The average citizen has no idea what's in those machines. And being a guy that understands machines and algorithms really well, there's probably 200 experts that have come forward and said, "Hey, look, this is what we found in the machines with the copies that we have." And so you can't. If you can't get through the machines, and mail-in ballots can go out to anybody they want, you have, filthy voter rolls, and you have a complete system that is designed to be fraudulent, it becomes really difficult to get anybody that is even sensible in a position of trust and authority in any one state, let alone around the country.
Yeah, I think, though, even if that were the case, that you get people in who aren't able to make the change that you would want, you would at least be able to draw out the issues that normally stay behind closed doors, whatever they are, right? So, like, if there's a competing incentive financially or whatever it is, where you get somebody who's a representative who votes seemingly against what they campaigned on. Why would they do that? I don't understand. And then they start saying this stupid stuff about the language in the bill or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's clearly not what the people in your district voted for. Why are you voting against them? Well, if it became a conversation where, hey, dude, look, your assets are at risk of being liquidated because you voted on that. That's pretty wild that you're willing to walk away from your house that your kids live in to be able. So where's the fire that we don't see? Because that's clearly your conviction in that bill is, so you kind of see what I'm saying, where it's like, where I think we would be inevitably going in the future is violence, where people just hit a breaking point where too much value has been extracted from the middle class and the lower class, where they just like, we go into a recession or depression and people are just like fed up, like they can't feed their families or whatever, everyone's losing their jobs or whatever, and then these sparks like Charlie Kirk end up igniting something way more than what people would anticipate. And I think if you have accountability specifically around politics, at least in some way, shape, or form, it's going to force some type of transparency that just we haven't got in the last 100 years or so. And again, I'm not naive. Getting one or two people to do it is going to be an insurmountable task. But if, say, we got I don't know, 100,000 signatures for people who are like, hey, yeah, no, I put money towards that. We definitely want to see that. Like, then we could probably do the research around who could be primaried, and who's a candidate that would potentially be willing to do that. And then try to be as objective about it as possible. And then I guarantee you, if you got one or two people, every single voter in the U.S. would have to look at their representatives, their senators, and say, "Hey, why wouldn't you take their money? Like they didn't ask for anything crazy."
So here's my problem, and this is me knowing politics,
sure,
and seeing it up front and personal. You're really smart. You're a really smart guy. I consider myself somewhat intelligent. That is the average IQ in the United States is like 94. I mean, most people are just not bright. And most people that follow some of the ideas that are out there are just not bright. I mean, it is a very toxic environment, and most people can't accomplish. All right, let me put it this way. You've had people work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ever had people work for you where you wonder just how they actually survive?
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, but I agree. And that's why I think, because like, as we shifted, we'll say, from hunter gatherers to more of an agriculture based, where people were very focused on their individual lives and areas and regions, to being able to be a local, a national, and a global economy. You start relying on people to be specialists, people who just dedicate their entire life to being the best blacksmith, to being the best woodworker, to being the best whatever. You lean on these people, these trusted people, to be the subject matter expert and the thing, whatever it is. Unfortunately, we've leaned on people to be the best reporter, the best news organization, the best politician, to represent me in the best way possible. But what's happened, as these incentives misalign, they start serving themselves and not their constituents. And so I think that we found in the whole COVID situation and so many others, and just how fragile certain aspects of civilization are, from the supply chain to politics and everything of that nature. So I agree. I can agree that there is variability around intelligence, but we need to get it in a lot of ways. If you can't trust those people, how do you create a system that ensures trust or ensures accountability? And I think that's the only way to circumvent a inevitable violent outcome, which has been that of most societies that tried printing their way out of, versus figuring out a way to be productive in their economies.
Yeah, I mean, history's not on our side. I mean, if we're going by history, we're headed towards violence. But I agree with you that that's actually not the answer. And if we can get through this in a way that it works the problem in such a way that allows for better representation and for better problem solving to occur, then great. I'm all for it. But you're an optimist. I work the problem. Like I've learned through the years that I use what's called XBML, business model language. It allows for me to see the holons within holons, systems within systems, and how one decision that's made in, say, Kentucky can influence a decision and or the outcome and have degradation in California per se, right? Mm-hmm. And how nobody actually looks at correlations between the two because they don't look like they're connected, yet they are. So when I look at what's happening in our country, I face the same problem. We're fed a bunch of garbage on both sides. No one knows what to believe. Everyone's kind of playing the propaganda game on both sides. And if we're going to solve this problem, we've got to figure. And by the way, we haven't even gotten to the part yet about algorithms. We haven't even talked yet about that, right? We haven't talked about machine learning and what the quote unquote AI that's out there has created for us. Because if you go on X or if you go on Facebook or you go on any of these accounts and somebody says something, the first thing they do is they run over to Grok and they put it in there, right? And then Grok spits out the answer to say, I'm the authority. And no, that person's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not living in a truthful society where you can, and I haven't, we could trace this back to Common Core math and some of the other problems we have and the systems of why people are just rock solid stupid, graduating, at a lower rate than they've ever graduated, in math at a lower rate than they've ever graduated. We can put that aside and just come to the conclusion that if Grok is the authority on things, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah, again, there's a lot to unpack there. I think that the Web 2.5 social media kind of incentive misalignment has led to a emotional atrophy and will maybe even intellectual. But I would say the AI threat is the cognitive atrophy associated with that is going to be significant for sure, because you can already see, a good analogy in that would be that, the people who grew up in certain periods of times who did math on paper versus people who, when Texas Instruments came out with like the TI-86 and 92 or whatever.
I still have one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And now it's like you can type into pretty much any website now will give you a breakdown of very complex mathematics. Wolfram Alpha and different places. So it's not to say that there aren't benefits, but there is going to be an atrophy associated with it. I love the Stanford Marshmallow study and the using that as an example in a lot of these different things, and the friction required in delayed gratification and that whole dopaminergic process is so important. And you can see that in fitness. You need the friction to be able to get the effort that you want. Downstream will create the results that you want. It's the same thing with a lot of these different social media platforms, or now even the AI systems. I think because the friction, the effort is going down, there's an atrophy associated with it, and those stabilizing muscles within the brain are going to be the ones that are worse for it and everything. So, and again, I am an optimist because I think you have to be, because the alternative is giving up and falling into a dystopian future. And there's nothing that frustrates me more than, you probably know, having had employees and everything, is like people who throw their hands up and just accept that, what bad happens to me, I don't have any control over. Fuck that. If I have free will, I'm going to put my best foot forward every single day and try to make the world and my family, my local community, and my world as good as I can, to leave it better than when I came into it. And I'll be damned if I'm going to throw my hands up and say, yeah, you know what, the tech overlords won. I'm going to come to
talking about, we talked a little bit about Palantir and some of the other technocracies that have been created over the last 20 years. Pretty dangerous environments, right?
It is. Yeah. My first book is it's about the attention economy, and things around that. If I do any more, I tell you, I'm going to give your listeners a free copy if they want it. This hardcover, I absolutely love it. We'd go into a sales pitch here, but I actually have a journal in the back of it too that you'll have access to. Just go to warriorsgarden.com, use the code Joe, and I'll give you the book for free. I will 100% eat the cost of this if you leave me a review, honest opinion about what you think about it and everything. But because if I do another book, it's not going to come at a right now it's kind of it doesn't come at any kind of cost for me to talk about the attention economy. I think a lot of people understand the dangers around it, and this hopefully brings things a little bit more into perspective and allows you to create systems and processes to help you mitigate those consequences. But if I do another book, it will be somewhere around the surveillance economy and just why it's such a huge threat for the individual.
Flock cameras are in nearly half the states so far.
Yeah, and we are on the verge of those incentives being stacked against us, because what happens is, YouTube in 2007, when dealing with their lawsuit, they weren't yet part of Alphabet and Google, and that really helped kind of cement some things around the DMCA. But they weren't profitable. And a lot of these tech companies aren't early on, but the second in which they start generating revenue that allows them to achieve some type of regulatory capture, to influencing on their whether or not it's at the cost of their customers or whoever the individuals are. I think those industries, specifically around surveillance, I mean, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry at this point, depending on how you classify surveillance, but it's going to get way more profitable in the near future. I mean, there's a unique identifier associated with almost every aspect of your life, from your mattress and the subscription and the device ID with that, to the heart rate monitor on your hand and your wrist, to the vehicle you drive with a SIM card in it. Every single data point, every single unique identifier is mapping you out in a way that can be leveraged against you in the future. In a world of autonomous systems that are able to index and parse at scale without an individual having to manually do it, that becomes really, really scary, really, really fast.
Yeah, and I think that's my issue, is that there's no amalgamation of information that's coming together that's giving us anything that we can look at with this new kind of tech jumping off point, whether we're talking about mass surveillance or how they use that information to then map out what they see is our predictive next step. The issue that I have with this specifically, just if we were to cut out this subsection, is that then the tech companies are going to come to you and say, Richard, I want you to understand something. We're doing this for your own good. We don't want anybody to have access to your data. Right. And then people are like, oh, I feel like the minions. Ooh, yeah. You're staring at it. Ooh, look, light, turn the light on. Ooh. And so people run towards these things, not realizing they're running towards their own death. And it doesn't matter what industry we're talking about.
What's the Jefferson quote? Those who trade, or is it Jefferson or Franklin? Trade liberty for what was it?
For security, deserve neither.
Yeah, and the I don't even want to say the irony. I would say the tragedy of this situation is it's neither. We're trading it for convenience.
Well, and you don't, it's like having a snake as a pet. President Trump, aptly talked about the snake, and he took it home, and then the snake bit him and ended up killing him. But he said, hey, look, you knew I was a snake when you took me home, right? And in large part, we keep taking home snakes and serpents. We keep taking home things that we know are going to destroy our communities. And we could talk about that with drugs, legalization of marijuana. You could say it's not a gateway drug. I don't care. The reality of it is drugs are destroying our communities, and we said it's okay, right? And so the same thing goes with pharma. We in 1986 made a decision that we were going to make pharma companies absolutely immune to prosecution. Well, what does that set us up for? Now we have 114 different vaccines. And I don't care who you are. You put that much stuff in your body, it's not going to be good.
Well, and so that's actually one of the core principles. I think that if we were to establish, like, we'll say 3 to 5 of, like, if we were to have like a super PAC or something, absolutely, like, no immunity. Let the judicial system, there's no immunity in any circumstance. The judicial system has to play out. Like, it has to.
Well, how about judges? Because they're a massive problem in the system too.
Well, and so again, this is where when I say I'm borderline individual rights absolutist, I think that removing as much from the federal government as possible and localizing it, not even just on states, but at a county and city level. And if people need to move to a different district or a different city, that's not that big of an issue. But whenever it's like it's top down from the federal government, that's a completely different thing. I think that one of the problems in society, or actually one of the root causes of so many problems in society, is that I think more people are focused on things that they have zero control over. They get caught up in the headlines, the algorithmic kind of benefit of watch time on platform or video. Getting sucked in that trap is, oh, let's talk about this thing that could potentially end the world, or that's happening across the world, and not the thing that you actually have a direct impact on, which is your community, either locally or even on a state at some capacity. And I think if everybody collectively, as an individual, improve their communities, you would see a snowball effect in society in a way that, like, we're seeing the inverse now, because everyone's letting, well, those relationships atrophy in their communities and their local governments. Like, you going out and to vote is so important, not for president, probably not for senator or your representative, but for local judges, like you say, your county tax assessor, and so many different things. Like, who are these people? Like, have you ever met anyone in your community that is running for office? Like being able to pressure those people and say, hey man, like, you ran on this. Like, why are you voting this way? Or why are you doing that?
I've given people a ton of money and then walked in and said, you said you'd do this, you didn't do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, Joe, it's complicated. I mean, Lauren Boebert, I actually like Lauren Boebert, but I've donated to all of these people. And every time I donate money through, whether it's to a PAC that I think is doing work to help them, it falls on deaf ears. It's like they get amnesia once they get in office. And it's so intoxicating. The power and the money is so intoxicating to most of society.
Yeah.
That
so
the problem.
So and here's the thing. I'm not saying that I would have any or all of the solutions. What I would encourage people to do is come to the table with some constructive ideas, solutions, short of criticism. Like, everybody knows the system sucks. How can we start holding people accountable in these processes?
So the great part about you is that you will work the problem. Like, you will. I mean, you're doing stuff right now. AI. I'm going to read your book. I mean, so I'll make sure I have it and I read it. And I think everyone should. And I love books that give me an idea of perspective on what I can do better. Right. But I mean, there are people, there are people out there. I mean, I talk about problems all day long. I don't complain. And I said it before you even got on, that you have to recognize the problem before you can work it. You got to recognize where the gunner's coming from. before you can actually neutralize your target. Everything has to be built on the idea that you're trying to fix things that are broken, while recognizing there are a lot of things that aren't broken. Like, you're not broken, I'm not broken. We know how to do business, right? We know how to create and innovate. There's a lot of great things that innovate. There's a lot of great things that are innovative, that, like the flock cameras, that destroy people's sovereignty, right? But I think that we have to start figuring out what is complaining and what is recognition of, hey, look, if we don't fix this, the purge is coming. Because there are a lot of pissed off people, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of bad shit to our people. Just harsh reality.
Yeah. So let's hear some ideas.
All right. We start by getting rid of property tax and making sure people have their own sovereignty and they own their own home. That way, as people get older, they don't put themselves in a position where they become subjected to state forfeiture laws, right? And there's over 200,000 people a year across the entire country that lose their homes because of property tax. You shouldn't have to rent your house from the government. The government should never come in and be able to take it from you. That's not complaining. That's recognizing the fact that nobody should be able to put a permanent tax on your home. Fair?
I mean, I'm kind of that individual rights guy to the core. So, like, yeah, I mean, again, the country was founded on us just being taxed on tea.
Yeah, 2-cent tax, right?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have income tax until we didn't have a temporary income tax until the World Wars, and so.
It started in 1908 and then went back into effect in 1913 when you had people moving across the country and basically proclaiming their ownership of land. And in the 1800s, you had fees associated to land that was gifted to you by the government. So the government bought that land up and said, okay, if you go and you settle that land, we will pass it off to you. And for the next 10 years or 12 years, you have to pay us an entitlement or tax on that land. So we turned entitlements and we turned those fees into taxes. And then they've created a permanent environment if you get into the early 1920s, which is what you're talking about. When we headed into war, now we have these permanent taxes. The reality of it is that now it's 56 cents on every dollar. 56 cents on every dollar goes to the government, which means you're less than a half of a person, right? Your roads are taxed. You have tolls. You have property tax. You have income tax. You have gas tax. You have business taxes. There's no limit to where they stick their fingers in and take from the American people.
Well, so you said a number of things there. You're talking about, if that's the case, the Federal Reserve can print as much money as they want. So why do people pay taxes at all? Like, if you can quite literally print all the money that's being paid in taxes, why pay any taxes? And the average person will hear that and they'll go, well, yeah, why? Well, because the tax is an incentive for productivity within the economy. And so to keep people working, and I would, don't use this term loosely, as indentured servants and on the hamster wheel, as long as possible, you have to devalue that work so that they can't save. This is something I think about, and this is not a completely fleshed out thought, but I think being the guy who is very much individual rights and anti so many taxes, I wonder if we are rapidly approaching breaking. To say that we were in pure capitalism in any way, shape, or form would be a lie at this point, because between bailouts and monopolies, we're nowhere near it. But still not socialism or communism in any way. I think that we could, if a few companies start leveraging, AI. What are a lot of these models trained on? You and your data, everything that you've done online, which
media.
And media and
media that's written by a bunch of yahoos that used to, cover entertainment. like not smart people, right?
Yeah. In the next 10 years,
Yeah.
20 years, the various models, depending on how they're structured, will train on behaviors from welders to HVAC repairmen to, all these different trades. And if you have a humanoid robot that costs $30,000 a year that's capable of leveraging the known information and skill base of humanity and leverage 20 or 30 years of everyone's collective information against each individual in the marketplace, you'll never be able to make more than that 30,000 a year because they could just have a robot do it. So at what point, this is just a thought exercise. I love doing thought exercises. And again, I don't have a very strong opinion on this, but it's something I like to encourage people to do, is like, at what point do we say, hey, look, we're just going to have to tax these companies on any, like UBI is not going to work. Like, I hate to break it to people, but if you give everyone $1,000, the price of everything else is going to go up proportionately to its value in that $1,000 increment. So it could be, $1 million, give everybody $1 million, whatever. We may have to have a conversation about taxing any autonomous or machine job that displaces a human one, and then give a human dividend to all those people in that society. Because what's your value as a human in a world where right now knowledge work is being displaced remotely through these different language models, but in a world where you have humanoids, what point do real world applications and jobs are they at risk? So, I mean, not to digress, I feel like we're covering so many different things, but it's a lot's coming at the world really fast, and I think people should have honest conversations, not just sensational ones about getting emotionally charged. Like, start using those little gears in your head that make you say, hey, all right, we got to figure out a solution to this. Like, how do I bring something to the table that's constructive that everyone else can either rally behind, chip away at, refine, make better, or whatever. But we're not going to, this isn't going to be a good outcome if everyone just sits back and yells smoke, but doesn't try to put out the fire.
Yeah, and I agree with you fully, 100%. But when we come with solutions to say, and I'll use the election systems as an example, sometimes the most technology is not the best decision, right? Sometimes the simplest solution is always the best. So we said, hey, we'll hand count paper ballots. We'll kind of return to a place where we can gather the confidence of the American people. And then after we have that confidence, because here's how the system works, and we architect this entire system and say, bring an ID, make sure you vote in person, do all those things. And all you hear is screaming from the background of, no, I want to keep the machines. But it's not the people saying that. It's the people in power saying that, right? So every time we bring these solutions to the forefront, it's not the best idea that wins the day. It's the, hey, can I grab this influencer? Can I put all my weight behind them? Which is why I hate PACs or any group of the tech giants getting together and saying, hey, let's put Tim Pool on a pedestal. Let's put Ben Shapiro on a pedestal. And then they say something stupid and the whole world attacks them. And then, they spend the next 6 months rebuilding them, right? Because all of our ideas come from people who don't have experience, right? Frankly, that's my opinion, right? And so we find ourselves coming up with great ideas, but the great ideas never get to the forefront, or you never get to the tip of the spear, because it's not, you just said it. It has to be, you show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome, right? There's no incentive for the system to change, which is why I feel, I pray to God that I'm wrong. For my children's sake, I pray I'm wrong. But when the incentives and the people who hold the positions of power, when it's not equally yoked with the American people, sooner or later you get to a place where it's the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so I can see that, but what I would say is, again, looking at the incentive problem, whose incentive is being disrupted in this, and can we realign in a way that's mutually beneficial in some way, shape, or form? Now, I think it's not interesting it's a funny one of my acting coaches, way back in the day. Say the story for another time, but it's like sociopaths and psychopaths are not interesting. You have to assume that some people do have just good intentions, but they're worried about their family or their fortunes, whatever they are. How do you disrupt an industry and align incentives? Well, a good thing maybe the financial markets, as an example, with crypto and everything. A lot of people, early days of crypto were anarchists to, wanting to see the system burn down. Like even, the Satoshi white paper for Bitcoin was, in right after the financial crisis and subprime mortgage issues that we had, and I think that a lot of people, they just want to see the system destroyed and like just burned down and something new maybe go in its place. But if you say, all right, look, we understand that Visa does X amount of JP Morgan is a company worth X or whatever. How do we integrate in a way that keeps me from my brakes going out on my car and me driving into a tree and suiciding myself, to aligning it in a way where we can get transactions down to a fraction of a cent and they can make money, but we can also have the next generation of infrastructure is built out or whatever it is. It's like you have to look at some of these problems and at least try to put. I'm a Chinese finger trap in so many different ways. Like you give me no friction, I'm easy breezy in a lot of ways. As soon as I get that friction, I start meeting it with equal opposite friction. And I think that a lot of these industries, if we just don't approach them from the anarchist perspective, and we try to figure out a way that doesn't put them at risk of just being completely bankrupt or whatever. They won't feel like, I don't know. Maybe that is idealistic, but if you find a way to make it profitable for them to evolve, I think a lot of our systems and our processes and companies, you look at communication, great example, the telephone, the from the printing press to the cell phone and everything, is just orders of magnitude in efficiency in communication at scale. Like every single one of them, every single improvement is met with some type of opposition, but the inevitability is the reduction of that friction to a more efficient system and whatever that is. And there's so many different industries right now that are trying to act as a dam for the tidal wave that's coming. And I think that if we can just, the music industry, another great example, fought tooth and nail, digital, MP3s and everything. And you could argue that that's the reason why Apple was able to take over that market in so many different ways, because they were building the infrastructure, the payment rails, and the ease and the accessibility that all the music industry could see was the Napsters and the LimeWires taking a little bit of money from them. Well, if they had just looked outside the picture and said, hey, look, people just want easier access to the music, getting it quicker than going down to the record store and waiting for this thing to release. They want it now or whatever it is. If we can say, hey, look, this is the next thing that's coming. How do we align incentives in a way that doesn't lead to an inevitable breaking point, either in their business model or in society? And I think that we owe it to our kids to do that, right? There's so many different problems that it's easy to get distracted, and I do have that ADD of just jumping from one thing to the next. But I think that we do have to get our the national debt in order, because my fear is that the bailouts are coming in a way that's just going to keep inflating and really killing the middle class and the lower class.
Well, so two things that I think are true about I'm a walking encyclopedia of worthless information. So I think that the nihilism that you talked about earlier, about just driving your car into a tree, that life is somewhat just meaningless.
Oh, that wasn't me being nihilistic. I'm just saying that somebody does it to me.
But what I'm saying is that has crept into our society, right? We replaced God with what we call as meaningless. Like, there is no God. You turn into dirt. That means that your time here on earth, if it's not perfect, and you have problems, then just end your life. Just get it out. And you can see that type of mentality creeping into government, because look what they have in Canada. You know, they literally have the ability that if you just want to end your life, you have the ability to end your life. I mean, they have like state-sponsored euthanasia that also exists in, I think, 11 other countries in Europe, right? So 11 other countries in Europe, they have an entire tourism that's around killing yourself, right? And the fear that I have is that, and I got to go back to what you said, incentives. What is the incentive of someone to work if the entire idea of what's in the future is you're not going to have to work, right? You're not going to have to do anything. So what is, a human society, there's a nature to humans that they want to be able to have meaning, that there's a meaningful existence. And this is where I think it all ties back together, that, I look at the World Economic Forum and the things that they say. And again, I'm not barking at the problem. I love to solve the problem with technology, as long as it doesn't include guys like Palantir, Bill Gates. I mean, just really disgusting people. These are just not good people. I mean, Peter Thiel's he's a scary guy. He's a scary guy because you just don't know what comes next, right? As long as it fits him, it'll be great. I
like what you're saying, though, actually makes me optimistic, because you look at the number of young males attending church, and rising in the last 4 years, right? In these different things, I think that we're rapidly approaching what gets me so excited is that with diffusion models on social media, everybody now is questioning everything that they see, and they're kind of over it. I love that, because if everything's fake online, nobody cares about it anymore. The veil has been lifted. Social media was never an accurate representation of reality the last 20 years. People got famous on Instagram for using Facetune, a Photoshop version of an artificial reality that doesn't exist, or at best, it's a highlight reel of their life, and it's led to stress on relationships through people either like coveting the other or whatever, to the unrealistic expectations of what your life should be through these highlight reels of these fake lives that they see other people living. And now that we're getting to the artificial generation of things, like everybody questions everything. Oh, that's AI. That's AI. That's AI. It's awesome, because I think what we're doing is we're devaluing everything in that digital experience as cheap as possible, and people are going to start valuing the in-person experience. And my optimistic hope here is that by doing so, this is hopefully going to start reinforcing the fabric within communities, and that in and of itself will have positive long tail implications. And that's my optimistic hope here, is that I want to devalue everything in the digital as much as possible, as fast as possible, and just incentivize people to seek out that in-person, be it board game clubs or athletics or church, whatever those things are, to get people in their communities. And I just had two of my really close friends who are on completely polar opposite ends of the political spectrum. I mean, as far apart as you can be. And we're at dinner one night a few nights ago, and there were just afterwards, that person's the coolest person ever. I really appreciate you introducing them. And they look at each other's social medias, and it's like, oh wait, that's not even like somebody I would even have a conversation with in the past. So I think the more people start having these in-person interactions, they're going to realize that they're not so far off from their neighbor as what they thought they were over the last few years.
Well, we talked about this before we even came on here, about the friends that I keep, and I have a lot of, and I got a lot of flack for this. I have a lot of left friends. And I'm arguing with a guy right now on one of the social media deals. I'm like, dude, you're lying. Stop lying. You're just killing me. But at the end of the day, I'll go have coffee with him, or I'll go have, a beer with him. I'll sit down with him and we'll talk. And I'm like, bro, let me tell you about this. And 99.99% of the time, I have a hat that says JIRA, Joe is right again, right? JARA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll bring my hat, and as soon as I'm right, I just put my hat on. He's like, dude, get out of here. I was like, I had to. Sorry, somebody gave it to me. But it's super important that we start having dialogue and we start having these conversations, because we're not having them now, right? And you talk about what's happening in social media and some of the changes, the algorithmic changes that have to happen in social media in order to get us to a place where we don't go kinetic, because it's going kinetic. If we don't get social media under control, the rest of the world's not going to be able to catch up. We're going to get to a place where it starts, and we're already seeing it now. The reason why you have shooters at Brown University and people that shoot up, besides having a mental illness problem, which is probably caused by social media as well as big pharma, we have a problem with this thing that's happened, this contagion that is happening on these social platforms. And so,
yeah, I mean, I can break some of that down for you, and how I try to approach it in the book. And very much like you say, to work a problem, you have to understand the situation. And so for me, one of the very first things that I had to do is turn on screen time and all these other different measuring programs that run in the background of your devices, so that you can see weekly how much time. Your first week will probably be variable because you're going to be checking in on that stuff, but you let it run for a month, and then you start getting an accurate representation because you start forgetting about it tracking. And then you see how much time you're spending on Instagram, how much time you're spending on Snapchat, or whatever these things are, and you extrapolate that over a period of time. And you need to do some serious work and the things that are important to you in the short term and the long term. If it's a family, which, like there are certain aspects of my life I feel like I wasn't prioritizing. And this is, the book in a lot of ways is an anecdotal journey for me too, in trying to define the things that are my core values, the things that I find important in life, and hold that up against the time that I'm spending. And am I prioritizing that stuff? Because I don't want to be 50 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, looking back and saying, oh, I spent a year and 2 months of my life on Instagram, and I didn't spend any doing that thing that I thought that I cared about. My priorities weren't in a line. And I can't say that I wasn't complicit in the time that was extracted from me. But and then I'm not going to play the victim here. I'm going to be proactive. So once you kind of get the situational awareness of, how your time's being spent, I offer up some tools for people to kind of some thought exercises. Again, it's interesting. You were talking about perspective earlier, because I like when people give me a little nugget on anything that kind of sparks something around perspective. And I just casually was listening to that interview or something. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about perspective, and immediately my ears perked up, and I was like, oh, okay, let's hear what he has to say here. And he's like, people and time, it's really, really hard for the average person to understand time. And if you were to look at something like the life of your dog, and you hear that most people will hear like 1 year of your life is 7 years of your dog's, but that's such a huge number. Let's forget about billions and trillions of dollars in debt in the economy. Let's just try to break down something that is very like applicable to the average person. It's the life of the animal and their lives. And so for every 1 year of my life is equivalent of 7 years of my dog's. But even then, that's very hard. A lot happens in 7 years. So how do you put that into perspective? And he's like, well, if you break it down even smaller, every day of your life is a week of your dog's. And I was like, oh my God, like that just instantly hit me in a way that just crushed me. Like the amount of time that I spend away from my dogs or my family members and everything else. It's like, oh, okay, these mental exercises and giving me perspective about the things that I care about and how I should shift my priorities and where my focus is so important to me. And as I go through the book, I offer up some of these tools and structuring those things. And to be brutally honest, there's plenty of studies around different things in there that I thought that were going to be, well, I mean, not that meaningful, and they ended up being some of the more meaningful things. I'll give you another example. You know what? One of the most researched data points, and observations and medical, studies is the placebo effect. It's more researched and observed than just about any other data point because it's included in a lot of these trials. And so what you'll see is that the placebo effect actually has a measurable impact on a lot of studies, and it's usually 2 to 3%. And so that's to say that the brain has the ability to impact the physiological state in a meaningful way. So when you look at that, you have to say, hey, one, how am I being impacted by social media? But then two, like, how do I leverage this thing in a way that gives me the desired outcome that I want in my life? I'm not going to be the victim here. I'm going to be I'm going to be the hero of my story for me, my family, and those future generations. So I get really excited about it because going through it again, it was one of those things where I felt like it was a fairly dark subject to have to unpack, and it would feel fairly dystopian. But I feel like we're rapidly, ironically enough, with AI and these different systems, being able to devalue that social experience that has been monetized at the detriment of so many people. And I say that as somebody who's benefited from it. Like, clearly, my companies, my businesses, my entire career in so many different ways is owed to the social experience. But I feel like I owe it to do the work around offering up free tools for people to be able to offset, mitigate those downstream effects. And again, it's one of those things where the average person will look at things and say, "Hey, look, yeah, that impacts people who aren't as smart as me. I understand what's going on, but I just need to use it for work or whatever." And then the analogy I love to give for that is like it's just like putting dope on a scope when you go to the range. If you're sighting in at 100 yards and you're off by half an inch, realistically speaking, if you're going hunting and you have a 100-yard shot, that's not going to be the difference between success and failure. But if you start getting at 600 yards for a shot, that can definitely play into the equation. And here we are, 20 years ago wasn't a big deal that the incentives were misaligned in social media. Here we are 600 yards down the range. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, we're starting to see some of the downstream consequences of the exploitation of neurochemistry to keep people on watch time or on platform as long as possible. And so we owe it to ourselves to start doing some work and trying to mitigate that as best as we can.
Look, I'm all for what you're saying, and I want to believe. I just know that the only time that I've ever seen a ditch get dug is if you dig it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we got to get to the part where we actually make meaningful changes. I think that's possible to have happen, but you have to, in large effect, it will take the Trump effect. It'll take people that are willing to make selfless sacrifices in order to get there. And it's got to be large.
But I love that. I love that you said that, because that's the point. And that's why this was my first book, because I agree. I think that as an individual rights absolutist, you can point to all these different things within society, but at the end of the day, it starts with you. I control how I behave in my environment, and that is the very first. So the Warrior's Garden is, it's a play on a number of things, but it's meant to be the brain, the mind, the creative, the soul. It's the thing that the individual holds sacred, right? It's that garden. It's the adage is better to be a warrior in a garden than it is a gardener on a battlefield. It's the mind is such an important thing to make sure that the soil of your garden is fertile and resilient. I love analogies. I've been digging deep into the world of regenerative agriculture, and last 6 years or so, one of the things that always pops up when people say is so funny. It's not how much rain you get, it's how much you keep. I love these little sayings. And it's so true. And how do you achieve an ecosystem that is going to get and retain an entire inch of water versus shedding it off into a waterway? You have to every single day work to improve the biodiversity of that ecosystem. Put the work in. I want to make sure that my mind isn't deteriorated in a way where I'm constantly being inundated with things that put me in a fight or flight state. I'm always angry. I'm not showing up. My dopamine, I'm like a junkie trying to doom scroll all day long and everything. It's like I need to do the work personally before I can take and help people in my family and then in my community and then, maybe some of the bigger picture items. But it starts with you. At the end of the day, if there's one thing you have control over in your life, it's you. So, you can bitch and complain, or you can start making change. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of challenges that people have to overcome in their lives, but you have to put one foot forward at a time. You can't, if you try to, create a plan, you could be doing that for 20 or 30 years. Put one foot in front. Like, movement is life. Like, for me, there's days where I like working on a farm. I'm just like, move. Like, I could sit here and I could sit here and think about what needs to be done, how to do it, or I could just start moving.
Yeah. So, I remember the day that I figured out that I could be the change that I wanted to be, right? And I could solve problems. And it was, there was a guy that was up on stage, and he was talking about the fact that you have two hands and two legs, and he looked over the side. There's a guy in a wheelchair, and he looks at that guy. I don't know if you know the person I'm talking about, but he looks at the guy and he walks up to him with his mic and he says, "Are you happy?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "But you can't walk." And he goes, "Yeah, but I'm so happy." And he goes, "And you can't use your arms." He goes, "Yeah, that sucks." I remember the guy saying it. That sucks. And I was in a white I was in a white t-shirt, and he started talking about having a white t-shirt on and going out for Thanksgiving and just handing out Thanksgiving Day dinners. And I looked at myself and I was like, I can accomplish anything I want. Like, I got both feet, and I'm actually pretty smart. Now, I drank my own Kool-Aid for a little bit, and probably too much Kool-Aid, but I accomplished great things. And from that point on, nobody could ever tell me I couldn't get something done until I got involved in politics. Like, I was like, I solved the problem. Like, I've solved this problem. Like, I got it figured out, right? And people used to say to me, they would say, "Joe, you're like the golden child. Like, you figure shit out so quick. It's like unbelievable." Right? God gave me this gift, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can fix that problem." And I do all the time. Like, I have a friend, my friend just called me. He said, "Joe, I'm buying out my company. I need your help." And I was like, "Send it to me." And I was like, click, do this, that, the other. I do it probably 20 times a month. Someone will call me and say, "I need your help." And I was like, "All right, come to my office. I'll spend 3 hours with you. I'll figure it out for you." Right?
Nice.
But when we talk about and this is the part that what you said is true. Rage scrolling, that shit is real. Right? And every time you get to the next post, you're even more pissed off. You're like, like, kill them all. You feel like,
look, don't be naive. Like, anybody listening, there has been billions and billions of dollars spent through machine learning to optimize for the thing that's going to increase your time scrolling. And unfortunately, that is the negativity bias. Like, the thing that, again, what we were talking about earlier, the twig
100%.
snapping on the savannah is a greater threat to you and the community than, the happy cool post of whatever, somebody's lunch. It's like the thing that's going to keep you in is the threat. And unfortunately, that's what's been optimized for.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're not going to figure it all out today, but let's tell everyone about your book. Let's start there, right? And we're out of time, and it's my wife's birthday, so I'm going to go hang out.
Hey, happy birthday!
Yeah. After 24 years, I know that I have to make her happy still.
That's awesome.
Which does not include social media, and includes kind of So So let's talk about your book for a minute.
Let's hear it. What do you want to know?
I want to put it out there, and I want to get people to buy it. So you said you have about 2,000 copies. We want to basically get all 2,000 of those copies to some of the smartest people in the world because they listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
So you said you can use code Joe.
Yep, you get it for free.
AOE, you get it for free,
and that's the hard copy. Like that way, you have an actual physical journal in the back of it. After you get done reading it, you can go through some of the exercises and everything. But I think that's really, really important. I'm super proud of it. Like the black copy, the hardcover, the white one's the paperback. I won't have a code for it because I don't control that stuff through Amazon. So if you go to warriorsgarden.com, use the code Joe for the rest of the month, I'll just give away those copies for free. You just pay the shipping. But I would ask that if you do get a copy, read it, good or bad, leave me some feedback on it because that'll kind of dictate whether or not I do a deep dive, much like I did in the digital attention economy, maybe something around the surveillance economy.
Yeah, so I just went ahead and I'm going to order mine right now.
Nice.
Okay, so the guy that I'm talking about, by the way, that and I was just is Tony Robbins. Changed my life.
Okay,
changed my life at 20. Was I 21 years old? Yeah, I was pissed off. I mean, I would read books like by Jared Taylor, Paved with Good Intentions, a book that was mostly banned in the United States for nearly 30 years. It talks about basically that race is a huge problem. I mean, I would have been your quintessential liberal back in the day because I was bitching about everything. And he said this, and I was like, man, I can do whatever I want. And I remember when people would say, you can't do this. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to try it just because you said I can't do it. Right. And most of the things in my life I accomplished by saying, people are like, where did you go to school for that? I'm like, no, I've just got a brain. So I just figured I'd figure this out. Right.
Yeah, and there's so many people out there. I feel like so many people just don't even show up for the amount of effort required to succeed. People aren't even willing to put 80% in, let alone 95%. So if you show up and you put 90% in, like you're ahead of everybody else.
You can't help but make money if you show up. And by the way, it's not show up for 15 minutes. Everybody's like, I showed up and nothing happened. No. You got to show up every day. You got to show up for the days that it doesn't work out. And then sooner or later, the engine starts running. It's weird. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah. I was always a great employee.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Richard, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your tenacity. I look forward to talking to you after I read your book.
Hey, I really appreciate the feedback when you give it.
And then we can talk about how do we defeat this nihilistic behavior that we have going on in our government that has pushed people to feel like they're meaningless, that pushed people to feel like that there is nothing that they can strive for that matters because someone else has taken it all from them.
I would love that. I'm just looking forward to as many people who can contribute to a constructive conversation, trying to find solutions because we need it.
Well, my biggest solution is get rid of machines and mail-in ballots because that'll at least restore the sovereignty of our nation. So we'll start there. The rest of it, I mean, I can capitulate to almost anything as long as it's not doing the same thing that we're doing right now. Right?
Yeah. It seems like we are in a broken loop.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it drives me crazy. I wake up and I feel like I'm Bill Murray. And I'm not learning to play the piano. That's the bad part. I mean, I want to learn to play the piano. I think it'll be a great idea. Wake up every day and just learn to play the piano.
Love it. Love it. That reference isn't lost on me as one of the best movies of all time.
100%. 100%. Well, God bless you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care. Great part about that conversation is Richard truly just wants to do good. And whether he was a Black Rifle Coffee, I was going back through some notes. So I had spent some time with him when we were doing some work for Black Rifle Coffee years ago. And I didn't realize it was the same guy, but he was the one that when he said that he just got to work, I remember this project that he had. It was a box, and the box was this special coffee from Black Rifle, and they only made like 10,000. They sold out in like 45 minutes. I know that was his brainchild. I didn't bring it up while he was on the show, but I know that there's so many things that he did when he was at Black Rifle, because I went through just a couple of emails. I was like, well, that's weird. Yeah, he was the one doing that project. We're doing that project. So when he says he wants to solve the problem and solve the world's problems, I think that I think it's true. I think he does want to do those things. And politics is a little bit different, and I am a little bit jaded. But what I got from that is that even if in my idea of being jaded, can we get to a place where we say, okay, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, let's do something, which goes again to the thing that I always say, which is we pray first, we stand up, we speak the truth, and then we act in that truth. And the act is grabbing the shovel and just digging the ditch, not waiting for someone else to do it. So I got a couple other things I want to talk about. And by the way, go get his book. Go get his book, and let's compare notes. After you read his book, I'll read his book. I just finished a couple of really great books of guests that we had on. So I'm going to have those guests back on so we can talk about them. This will be one of those books that I think is just necessary for us to read and to study, because I think that we in the middle of being nonpartisan, partisan politics and looking towards, how do we eliminate evil? We stare at it. So it's an analysis paralysis. So how can we get out of that analysis paralysis? And how can good people stand together against that hypocrisy that we're talking about? The idea that they just see us as ebits, serfs, slaves. And can we say that those things are true? Well, actually, I don't know, build the next supercomputer, be the Steve Jobs group of the world and solve problems. So it'll be a good book to read. I plan on reading it in the next couple of weeks and getting him back on. Okay. So got some good news to finish out things. I'll go through a couple of good news things, and I got to get off this podcast. I'm sorry, but it is my wife's birthday. And frankly, I'd rather hang out with her. Love you guys, but I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I want to hang out with my wife. Judge Hannah Dugan who helped the illegal alien avoid being arrested by ICE, has been convicted. Frankly, you could convict every judge for being just bad, because the vast majority of them are bad. And when we talk about lifting the veil and applying consequences to everyone, I think it does have to include judges. But let's go ahead and play this one cut about Judge Hannah Dugan, who's facing up to 5 years in prison. Now they're going to give her probation because that's what they do to their own, because the haves and the have-nots, but it still is a conviction. Let's play it.
For the first time, we're seeing Judge Hannah Dugan outside her courtroom April 18th, wearing her black robes, appearing to confront several federal agents there to arrest Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Milwaukee man and Mexican national charged locally with 3 counts of domestic battery. This video, released by Milwaukee County through an open records request, is part of the evidence in the case against Judge Dugan, who's charged with obstructing a federal investigation, concealing Flores Ruiz, allowing him to leave her courtroom by a different door after sending the agents to speak to the chief judge. Flores Ruiz, dressed in black with his attorney, is seen in several of the videos leaving by that other door. One prosecutors say was used by jurors and not open to the public. As he leaves, though, he is seen in the hallway, followed by another agent. As Flores Ruiz gets into the elevator to leave, the agent slips in as well. According to the criminal complaint against Dugan, that agent followed them down. The agent seen here following out of the building downstairs, and once backup arrived, they tried to arrest Flores Ruiz, who another video shows ran north in front of the courthouse for nearly a block before agents caught up with him and arrested him. Federal agents arrested Dugan herself a week later.
Eduardo Flores Ruiz's domestic violence case is moving through the Milwaukee County Court. He is, however, in federal custody on his immigration arrest. The FBI arrested Judge Dugan at the county courthouse 1 week later on April 25th. She pleaded not guilty in a federal court last week.
Now she was convicted. If you're left, if you're a liberal, can I ask you a question? How is it that you can support people who are just retarded? And how could you say that this isn't ridiculous that we're supporting? This is what is happening in Minneapolis right now, like as we speak. Play it.
Public urination and defecation on the streets of downtown Minneapolis has gotten so bad, the Minneapolis Downtown Council has a public map tracking every instance where a member business calls and crews are deployed to wash or scoop it up. That is a direct quote from the Star Tribune piece.
Isn't it Ron DeSantis who held up that map of San Francisco? You know what I'm talking about. The POOP map. He held up a map when he was debating Gavin Newsom of San Francisco because there is an app that tracks in San Francisco where people go, number 2, on the streets. When you see one, you punch it into the app. I guess we need our own version in Minneapolis. We need that extended over here because apparently this is a problem we have now too.
What a time to be alive.
A map for poop. This is what the liberals think are important. That and global warming. So people are upset because if you didn't hear, the Kennedy Center has Trump's name on it. Go play it.
I'm feeling like democracy died today. This is history happening today, and we should all be shocked that a felon, a convicted felon, and a thug, and by all means a grifter, has just stuck his name on top of a national monument. This is a desecration.
A desecration. I just can't. I can't. So women and children get raped and trafficked all over the country by illegals, and they come across the border and they are being trafficked and raped, and nobody cares about them. And then you have Epstein, who's good friends with all sorts of judges and politicians, and jet set with people all over the country, including the people in the royal family. And all of a sudden, he's now a grifter. So President Trump's a grifter. They use dog whistles because they are deranged. These are deranged people. I'm sorry, but you really are deranged people. Something's wrong with you. And this is what happened in Evanston, Illinois. A local terrorist turns her car sideways to block DHS agents on the road. Let me ask you a question. Why was this person thrown in cuffs, have her car impounded, lose her car, and let's start by having consequences? Well, let's go ahead and play it. Well, that's weird. And this is what happened when an illegal got deported back to Mexico. This was pretty interesting. Go play it.
I got deported to Mexico because of ICE. This is my new house in Mexico. There's no McDonald's. There's nothing here. There's no KFC. There's no Grinch meal. In this dirty fucking country.
You just want to take. You don't want to take and you don't want to give back. You got to get out. Get out. Get out. Now, what I will say this. I don't want to throw everybody out. I really don't. I don't want to throw everybody out. You see, I'm crazy. You guys all like, oh no, get them all out. No, I don't want to. I don't want to throw people out. You want to know why? I don't want to throw people out. Why would we? Why would we? And the same problem, like we're throwing people out, the same problem we have with immigration, people coming here, is the same problem we created. So the government created the problem, not President Trump. President Trump's the only outsider we have. Pam Bondi's not an outsider. She's an insider. They're all insiders. Kash Patel, insider. He just wants to stay around for 10 years. We're going into 2026 and we don't solve the election problem. We're not going to have it. We're not going to have it in a country. Like you had people that have to put out these videos and they're like, Scott Pressler put out a video. Scott Pressler said, I'm headed to AmFest and I just want to thank everybody for being a good partner. And I'm thinking to myself, so that we can save the country in 2026. And I'm thinking to myself, save it from who exactly? Because a lot of these people, Scott Pressler is probably one of the most terrible human beings this side of the planet. And you could say you like him, and I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't been wrong yet. I'm not wrong about Bannon, the massive guy that would, turns out he's good friends with Jeffrey Epstein and staying in his pad and trying to train him up on how to be more likable after he was convicted the first time of raping a child. Yeah, that guy. I mean, he's a good guy. People listen to him. And I think to myself, you know what? The stuff they say about President Trump is not true. The stuff they say about Steve Bannon is absolutely true. Absolutely true. I saw when there was a documentary that came out, and the day before there was a judgment against Mayor Giuliani, and he calls him up, and he was supposed to be the one to say, okay, we're going to push this out there. He found every excuse in the world, and he said, I can't talk about it because I don't want to get sued. So the big tough guy that really wants to, take care of things, he betrays everyone unless there's money in his pocket for him. Oh, the big Goldman Sachs guy that's a American People's guy. Like I just can't stand I can't stomach any of them, frankly. I can't. I don't want to be. I can, you know what? I know there's real guys out there that do real good work, right? And everyone else just kind of stomachs each other and tries to stay on the same side and build this little fraternity. And that's not the people's fraternity. I want to be on the side of the people. I want to be on the side of the people where all people win. And that's just not what we have right now. We just got a bunch of influencers that are owned by somebody. I'm just not a guy that can be owned. I want to get to the bottom of it. I want people like Eric Coomer to go to prison. I want John Polis to go to prison. I want people that actually took away the rights and took away the lives of Americans, including the killing of millions of Americans. I want them all to pay. I want them to be tried for treason, tried for sedition, and if found guilty, I want them hung. Period. End stop. Stealing states, stealing the country, doing the things that they've done. It does not take a lot of time to actually fix these problems. But if we don't fix these problems, we have no country that we're going to be able to fix to begin with. That's my point. So let's pray. Father God, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for the opportunity we have to have Richard on. And for his just infectious personality of like, let's just get to solving the problem. Let's just work the problem. Let's not complain about the problems and not have a solution. So Father, I just ask you as you push forward with your solutions, your solutions of restoration and to, correct the wrongs that have been, infiltrating and destroying our nation, that we can do those things swiftly and with little to no emotion on how it gets done. We just lift it up, move it over, fix it, and get back to prosperity and taking care of our communities, our country, and the world. That's going to take a hard reset and kind of resetting all the bad stuff that they've let creep into our society, but it's necessary. So Father, I just ask you to give us the strength and the courage and the commitment and the know-how to solve these problems, to work out all of the rot that we have inside of our country today. So Father, I ask that we can have a great weekend and that we can spend time with our friends and family and we can spend time with you. Father, I say these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend. Don't have too much fun. Happy birthday to you, Erica. And if it's your birthday too, happy birthday to you as well. It's who is Chris? Evanston used to be so conservative. I guess so. Hi, good Susan. How are you? Mod Trend. I wouldn't listen to me sometimes either. My retarded brother and his family live in Minneapolis. See, we're going to make the R word really, 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 really successful. Don't blame me, Joe. Happy birthday to Joe's wife. Her name's Erica. She's pretty awesome. Gammy, always good to see you. Thank you. I'll tell Erica you said that. Have to remove all the thugs and terrorists. I agree with that. Or you could just, quick trial. Patrick's birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Patrick. Can't believe I missed it. I apologize. Yeah, man, I should have sang happy birthday to Patrick. Guys, listen, on Monday, we're going to do a belated birthday to Patrick. Okay. God bless you all. Remember, share Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. It's your job to share it everywhere. Just take the time, grab it, put the link up, put it over here. Everybody needs to watch this. This guy, Richard, super, super infectious, and was one of the founders over there at Black Rifle Coffee and is doing some great things. So God bless you all. Hey, Urge, that's great. Thank you, Joe. So not sure what happened about the water. I will share that with you. We have something happening. We just got to be really careful. Send me an email, joe@untamednation.com. All right, take care. Bye.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fire where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Tame nation, it's our battle.